Hello and welcome to the Roll and Reflect podcast, the podcast where we bring you insights from behind the tabletop and beyond the box. I'm your host, Devin, and unfortunately, my partner, Mark, is away today. Da-doom, just kidding. We are actually going to be interviewing Mark today about his life as a full-time board game previewer for the Dice Tower. Yeah. Mark, are you excited to chat about this topic?
Oh, I am. I love it. It's the best job I've ever had. I just have so much fun.
Yeah, we have so many great, exciting things to talk about. I know at first when I started into the content world, I was like, oh, let's do previews. Let's do all of that. And then I started going to just reviews. And then I kind of phased out of my content creation life. But now I'm really curious to hear about your insights from doing it full time. But before we do that, we have a special reflection question we would love you guys to answer in the comments below. And this is from Mark of Grand Gamers Guild. Go ahead, Mark. Take it away.
Hello, my friends. Mark Spector here with the Grand Gamers Guild. It's time to reflect. If you were to choose one element to be made from, what would it be and why? Personally, I would choose carbon. Pretty happy being a carbon-based life form. I'm excited to hear your answers in the comments. Okay, let's move on before we slip into the void.
So, interesting. If I were to choose to be any single element, we kind of kept this a little open-ended. I know Mark said carbon for his, but I think I'm going to go a little bit more of the traditional route, and I'm going to say water. I think water is one of the most essential elements, powerful, versatile. It represents balance and peace and connection to the wind and life. And I just think water is one of those elements that I absolutely love. I'm a huge fan of like beaches and kayaking and all that stuff. So I feel like I'm personally most connected to water, but what do you think about Mark?
Oh man. So I think straight up it would be air, wind, because I'm super fascinated by tornadoes. I don't want to be in a tornado. I've always been super fascinated by them, but just wind, the power of it. And also, if I was a superhero, I would want to fly. So wind, I want to fly. That's basically what it comes down to. And I love the fact that, you know, in the Airbender, right, in the last Avatar, that was just such a cool element for him to be part of. And I love that series, watching it with my kids as they grew up. So yeah, it definitely air, wind. I'm all about that. So yeah.
The power of flight is one power that I'd always want to have.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just like be able to, because that's how I like bike riding. I love to be free and, you know, I feel like I'm going everywhere. Now, if I could fly, that's even more freedom.
Even better, right? So I quite often have superhero-esque dreams. So flight is one of them a lot. And the funny thing about my dreams about flying is that I'm always like, wait, how does this work? And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, this would be a really good topic for a future reflection question. So we'll keep that on the back burner because I know what mine would be.
That was a great question.
So thank you very much for that question. If you guys want to answer that question, please feel free to comment below. We will happily see that. But now we're going to get into our big topic today. We're talking about previewing. And Mark, do you want to tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you currently do at the Dice Tower?
Definitely. Yeah. So we have a couple people who do previews of the Dice Tower, but I'm probably the lead previewer at this point. I do so many of them. And it literally is, so what I tell folks in meetings when I get together with them is that previews are meant to be overviews. They're literally show and tell pieces. And I want the videos to feel like, hey, I played a game last night. I'm just going to tell you about it. So it literally is that overview, kind of more of that top view, because that way, if they change rules, which so many people say, oh yeah, nothing's going to change, but it almost always changes. So I try to keep it high enough level that, you know, if something, you know, big changes, the video is still valid for the most part, right? So it's really to give, and I don't do the overhead camera thing, right? So I might do one shot that way, but in general, I love the B-rolls, setting up shots, you know, soft focus, dramatic lighting, shadows, depth. I love all that stuff. Standing up cards. I've got a little dolly that I drive around the table with the camera.
Rack focus. You get a little rack focus in there.
Yeah, it's so cool. So it is literally a show. That's what previews are for me, is they are show and tell pieces. Now, I have made a real effort to say I am not going to do reviews. Other than here, we talk about games and so forth. But in general, I am not going to do reviews. So I never cross the line between paid preview versus unpaid stuff. And that way there's no question because I'm always doing paid previews. There's no mystery about it. I am fully acknowledging that this video is paid, but I still have so much fun. And if you tell me I have to contain myself because it's paid, that's just ridiculous.
But Mark, your movie cinematic trailer voice, though, come on.
I love it so much. That's one of my favorite things about previews, actually. And doing the spotlights that I do is that whole thematic story epic part of the video is the only part of the video that I actually script. So I script that part and then maybe objectives and how you win, right? So all that is scripted, and I usually rely heavily on artwork or the Kickstarter trailer just to tie things into the campaign even more. But I want that thematic and story-driven aspect of the video to look very different than me showing it at the table. So, yep.
Can you start by sharing what first drew you into the world of board games? Like, why board games, and how has that evolved into a career?
Yeah, so this board game is like my fourth career. It's crazy. So I started playing games in like 1979. The first board game I purchased with my own money was Awful Green Things from Outer Space. So I would love a revamp of that game with actual amazing miniatures. That'd be so awesome. But yeah, that was one of my very first games. So I've always loved board games. And then of course that, went into video games. Atari 2600 came out, all those things. So I've always been just gaming in general, all about it, right? So I started out as a photographer, so which now plays into what I do. But I went to school for photography, so lighting, everything you'd expect, and it was a Colorado Institute of Art in Denver, Colorado, and so that was my first career. I worked at a newspaper. I worked for a magazine. I got to do a bunch of cool Star Trek stuff, Star Wars, and Back to the Future stuff that we talked about in other episodes. But my photography career went on for a while, and working in newspaper was not very lucrative. So
you went to board games.
Yeah, eventually, websites started coming along, right? And so once websites came along, I started dabbling in HTML. And so I helped a guy in Fort Collins with a site he was working on. And I was doing 3D animation too. So I helped him with that. It was like for a dental website. And I modeled the tooth with a syringe, putting whatever medicine under the gum or whatever. But that kind of, based on that and working with him a few times, he offered me a full-time job. So I went from photography to technical world, which I was already, even before, like in high school, I was always the computer nerd guy. I knew multiple languages and so forth. So from there, I was just a code slinger for a while, but then it dovetailed into me being management. So I was a manager for almost 20 years, managing a team of developers and so forth. And then from there, I started. Tom one day said, "Hey, if you'd like to do reviews, send me something, or just email me." So I emailed him. And so my buddy Randy and I did our first, we thought was I said before, we thought it was just a sample of what we could do, right? So it was Walk the Plank. So, and it's so hard to watch now, but so that was our first video. And so I was just doing it part-time, and I would go to conventions, on my vacation days from Wirestone, and eventually Wirestone got bought up and I got laid off. And Tom said, "What do you think about doing previews?" He asked me one day in an elevator at Gen Con. I said, "Yes." And so that's what started everything. And I've been doing it ever since. It's like, 6-7 years now. It's been a long time. I don't even remember. I have over 1,000 preview videos or something like that now. So yeah, it's a weird jump between careers and so forth. So I've always been a gamer though. So my buddy Randy and I would play games every Friday, and then we would talk about it. So eventually we decided, why don't we just do this on camera? So
that's how you get all of your business decisions in an elevator.
Right, in an elevator.
So what was the journey like then, from like playing games as a hobby to like turning it into the full time? Was there like a defining moment for you?
Oh man. I guess the defining moment was really when I got laid off. I was like, I've got to figure out what to do here. Am I going to go back to tech? And I was applying at places, and it was like when Tom offered that, I was like, okay, well, I need to step up my game. So I researched all kinds of stuff, and I already had a good solid photography and lighting background. So it wasn't like a huge leap for me to jump in, because even in the tech world, I was doing videos for them. So I'd learned Adobe Premiere on the job for Wirestone. So it all just kind of dovetailed into what I do now. So it probably was that. It was just that forced, you get laid off, you've got to do something, and ever since I'm always looking, how can I do this better? What's the next thing? How can I make it even cooler? And I have that imposter syndrome thing, right? Where it's just never good enough and I have to let go at some point, but I always feel like I could have been better.
Imposter syndrome is very tough. We all have it. I definitely have imposter syndrome, and it's one of those things that's hard to get over, but once you get over it, you're like very confident. You're like, okay, no more of that. Let's go on.
More of that. Yeah, and I'm definitely better than I used to be, but it's still there. It lingers for sure.
And getting laid off is probably like the defining moment for everyone. It's like you need to do something. So like you said, step up your game and let's go forward to the next thing. Can you walk us through your life as like a full-time previewer? What does the day-to-day look like from start to finish?
So Mondays and Tuesdays are my most crazy days, because in general, I'm gearing up to get things ready for like a Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday release for campaigns starting in early in the week. So usually I've already got stuff filmed and ready to go. Sometimes I'm filming or finishing on Monday to release on Tuesday. It's just because of the sheer volume of what I'm working on, right? And then the rest of the time is just me reading rule books, getting games played, and I don't have set days for those things. It's just like, okay, let's play this. So I either suck my family into playing, at least at minimum play a round or two, and then I'll finish out and playing a solo game or something like that. But sometimes I have to play solo because no one's available, which is not ideal because I want to experience the game as it's meant to be experienced. But so many folks have solo rules now, so it helps me in a pinch for sure. For like a 10-minute video, I'll spend like 3 days or more. I'll spend, reading rules, playing the game, figuring it out, see what's what. And then a full day of editing and filming and maybe a second day of that. Just depends on how well it goes, right? So,
I know for me, that's kind of why I had to leave the previewing world, because I don't have anyone to play with. I have one person here that plays games with me once a week. And I was getting 5 in at a time, and I was like, I don't want to read all these rules. I don't have anyone to play with. So there's not much for me to do. So I kind of had to go away from it. So it's interesting.
But yeah, I'm very lucky because my family, they're definitely all about, sure, we'll play. They may not play it a second time, but they'll always jump in for the first time. So it just depends on the game. But there are some games, like more recently, Gems of Erudicia, that now is like a family favorite. They love it, and they keep asking to play it. So, So
good friend is the designer of that one. Really cool to see.
He's such a nice guy and just been amazing to work with. So I had a blast with that. So along with that, then the rest of the week, can be meetings. It can be like shuffling the schedule, planning out the next week or two, and then filming. Like this afternoon, I'm filming Zoomies from Fireside Games. So it's just, of course, a dog theme. I'm going to go yes for any game that's a dog theme. I'm absolutely there. So I'm very excited. Fireside, they've become really good friends for a long time now. So I love working with them. And so that's the game I'm filming today. Tomorrow I'm filming Dark Tomb. Ooh. So I got to play a bunch of this stuff last weekend at BCon. Sean Brown, Mr. B Games, and Mayfair Games. They put on a convention over the weekend, and they do it every year. It's real small, like 250 to 400 people, and it's just a blast. So I got a bunch of games played that I need to film.
And I know we just had an episode with Sean on the podcast. So if you guys wanted to hear that, I believe it was 2 episodes ago or something like that, but go ahead back into our log and you can find it out. But I know something that's interesting is people are always like, oh, previews are so easy to do. Oh, you could just do a preview. Can you talk about what it's like to put together a quality preview?
It's not easy. It's just, that's the thing, is that when people complain about, oh, I can't believe this is paid, it's insulting because I put so much work into it. like I said, from getting the game played and reading rules, you spend hours just doing that. And then, from start to finish, I don't do, like the camera overhead where while I'm talking, I'm moving pieces around and showing stuff. So what makes it more complicated then for me is that I sit there and talk about everything. And then I create a shot list to go back and film the B-roll and put over the top of me talking, because I just think it's more dynamic. It's prettier, right? And it is an advertising piece, so it should be as cool as possible, right? So it's just a lot of work to plan out all those shots, get the lighting right, set up the different, because I've got a table light that I can throw color on different things, and I use that. And so planning those shots out, again, that's maybe another whole half day getting that ready. And so like I'll get everything filmed and edited with me talking, all that done, set up, the project files set up, found the right music, which is another thing I hunt for, and get all that rolling. And then it's another half day of filming for all that B-roll. So like I said, I put so much time into it that it hurts a bit when people say, "Oh, well, that's ridiculous that you get paid for that." Well, I like to eat, so
we all got to pay our bills somehow.
We got to pay
right?
our bills somehow.
Yeah, and as someone who came from a video production background, I totally understand. Because lighting takes a long time. You have to get the perfect shots. And then worrying about glare is also a big problem.
And because I have glasses, it always bugs me to no end that I have glare in my glasses. But I need those lights where they are to like, I've got the key light here, and then I've got the light across the room permanently affixed to the wall. Mm-hmm. So I can exactly get that nice subtle lighting, though, brighter here, little shadow here, so it's something I really work on. It's I spend a lot of time in setting those lights up and trying different things and so forth. So that alone, and just the prep time involved before I even film anything, the meetings that happen, and the skimming through the rule book to see if it's even something I want to cover. And that's the other thing, is that I made a conscious, because if I was just doing previews I wanted to do, it would be all big thematic story driven games that you move through a dungeon or whatever it might be. But I have made a real effort to say I will do even party games, which I'm not always super crazy about. It depends on the party game. But I try to do real family friendly games, really light card games. I feel like all the games deserve, a nod to some degree. And even if it's a game that I don't like, right? I'm still always looking for the thing that I did like about it. And there's always is. There's never been a game that I hated everything, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I feel like every game you have to have something that's not, that you don't necessarily like or whatnot, because that's what makes a game a game. You're not going to like everything all the time.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's actually an interesting transition, because there's so many games that come out every single year. You're not the one that decides what games to feature, or are you the guy that?
Well, yeah, like, hey, I'm the yes or no guy. So. Okay. There's been a handful of games that are very Monopoly-esque that I've turned down. I did one because it was Monopoly-esque, and it was in partnership with like the home channel out of Canada. And it was like they were going to promote this on the station. And I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm like, I started to play it. It was very Monopoly-esque. But you're building a house instead of like trying to buy properties. And you can cross the middle of the board and go around it and all that kind of stuff, but still roll and move and all that kind of thing. So my dad, who never plays video or board games, he sat down and he absolutely loved this game. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just being too harsh about things, because there truly is a game for everyone, and the construction aspect of you building the home in that game just totally appealed to him. Right.
I think that's something we need to be mindful of when we're teaching games, because there is a game for everyone. Even though you might hate this game, it might be the perfect game for someone else or in your family or friend group. So, and
people always ask me, how you were way too excited. The game can't be that good. I'm like, I'm just excited to get to do what I get to do. And I love, and as I film, the more I film, the more excited I get, because I'm like, oh yeah, look at this. It truly feels like, like when you're in kindergarten, you're doing your show and tell to everybody. That's what it feels like to me. I get so excited. So, yeah.
And we talked about this before on the podcast. I think that's why we have such a good connection, because we're both kind of like the hype men. Like I am
Definitely.
always really excited about everything, and you're always very excited. And so people sometimes come off as a negative, and we talked about that before. And it's hard for us to contain our excitement for things when we really are excited about it.
My two favorite comments that I've gotten on videos. This one is my all-time favorite. They're like, I don't know you guys, because I'm pretty sure Mark could make me want to buy Candyland.
You're a true salesman, Mark.
That was just my favorite comment. And then the other one was, I just had to laugh at, because the guy was like, "Oh, stop trying to be cool. You're not that cool."
We're all cool. Plus, you get to do board game previews for a living, so
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. That's what I said. Even on a stressful day, I'm like, wait a minute. You're just reading this rule book, and you get to talk about this game. Oh yeah, that's not really that bad, is it?
So when you're doing previews, then like what aspects of game design like catch your attention when you're working on a preview? Yeah. And then are there like certain mechanisms or themes that stand out to you most?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so many games share so much. So it's interesting, because doing it for so long now, that sometimes I can read the rule book and go, okay, I see what, and I can just play. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorite things is I still really love deck building. And if someone does something unique with deck building, I get very excited. I still love dudes on a map, but I definitely am transitioning. I love miniatures, but man, I'm really digging the whole acrylic miniature, standees now. I love those, because I am not a painter. So I love when games implement that kind of thing or give you an option. I'm also the whole worker placement thing. If someone does it in a unique way, like Winter Forge, because that game, you actually had to move your character along the board into the place where you could do the worker thing for that game, and you're trying to make different sets of like armor and things, I think. But it was cool, because you don't just place your worker there, you actually have to maneuver around the city to do all the things. I thought that was really cool. So I wish more games would try to, sure, you have worker placement, but you did it in a unique way, and so that also makes me very excited. And dice, my number one favorite thing. And if someone has dice chucking in their game to any degree, I always highlight it, because I love dice. So I do some silly thing like that. But that is definitely one of my favorite things. And especially if they're using the dice in a unique way that, maybe it's to boost health or whatever it might be, just something different that you would normally, it's not just for attacking or doing damage, that kind of thing. So.
Do you find it challenging to I know this is a hot topic here.
Yes.
Do you find it challenging to stay objective when previewing a game? Because when you're working closely with publishers and designers, I know there's that fine line to balance.
I do find it very difficult because of how excited I get and how I'm just so excited to play the game. And like I said, even if it's a bad game, I still always find, oh man, but I really liked how this one card mechanic worked, I will never ever say in a preview that this game is bad, because it may not be bad for somebody else, but I will always look for the 2 or 3 things to highlight that I thought were really cool. So, and it's, they're paying me to be kind of their hype man, like you said. So, to be objective and not be, this is the thing that drives me crazy, is that when folks get upset that I'm excited about what I'm talking about, there's no way I'm not going to be excited. That's just, because this is just such a cool hobby, and I get to talk about such amazing things. I am going to be excited. And so if that bothers you, I write up front in text, this is a paid preview. And then I say it again at the end. There's no mystery. Yes, this is paid. Take what you want from the video. Even if you just watch the intro about the theme and objective of the game, that's great. That's what you're getting from the video, and then you can go off to the Kickstarter or GameFound to see what you think of the game. But yeah, I refuse to be monotone and not be super excited about a game, because there are a lot.
I'm Mark. I like games.
Exactly. There's definitely a lot of previews out there that are just matter of fact, and I just don't think they're entertaining. And I'm not trying to be the entertainment for someone, but my excitement is genuine. It's not false or faked. And some people call me out saying, oh, that's clearly faked enthusiasm. No, I'm really that excited.
Yeah. The best part about those kind of people though is they're boosting your algorithms. Make them comment.
Make
hey,
them
comment more because my
comment
video
more.
will pop up. So
No
you're actually
doubt.
helping me.
Yes,
True
indeed.
marketing right there.
Yeah.
True marketing. So I'm curious, what's something behind the scenes, like in the process, that we don't realize or we might not see?
Yeah, so you might. One of the big ones is you'll hear a clip where it's been covered with B-roll, and you'll hear me say, "You're going to take 2 cards, and you're going to roll these dice, and whatever else the game calls for." But there's a cut between draw 2 cards and roll the dice because my brain went, what do you do next? So take 32 because I need it to be perfect. And it drives me crazy if I flub one word, or let's say I put like an S on the end of something that isn't plural, that bugs me to no end. Or and the other thing is that so many games have these unique fantasy worlds and names. I'm like, oh, well, how do you even say
remember
this?
it all?
How do you even say it? So those I have to film and refilm. And sometimes I've had to splice in one word because I got it wrong, and I literally do that because I want to get things correct. I don't want to be wrong, and it drives me crazy if a video goes up and I miss something. Like with Renegade Games, I did their Transformers Robo Rally. And I was so excited about the fact that you can do a ramp and jump. And I was just showing it off, right? And I say it correctly, but then visually I jumped one too many spaces because I was just like, look, you jump.
Yeah.
So
it's small rules like that we always miss too.
Yes. Yes.
And then we get called out for it by a million people, and we're like, you're not going to get everything right.
Right.
It's just
totally.
We're human.
Yep. And I'm firm believer that if somebody says something, I'll be like, yep, totally got it wrong. Mm-hmm. And but I was just so excited. That's how the B-roll turned out, and it was such good B-roll. I couldn't let it go.
Yeah. On that note, I actually want to give a shout out to Chris of Legion of Games. He recently put out a video, and he had to do a mea culpa because he did something. He read the rules wrong, and the video had to be taken down, and he owned up to the fact that he did that. And so he announced it to his viewers and stuff. I thought that was really, really cool of him to do that because we can't do it all the time. Like we can't get everything right. No. And when it happens, own up to it, Yeah.
And that's another reason I try to keep things general, because like if down the road the game now says draw 5 cards instead of 4.
Yeah.
So I'll say things like, on your turn you'll draw cards and not say how many.
Because we're trying to future-proof it, right?
Right, exactly.
Because it could change at all the times.
Radically change. And the order of how you do things could radically change. So
we have seen those previewer rule books. Yes, I understand firsthand.
This is the other thing that I use as an example when I have meetings with folks, is that I need some sort of image reference, because I had a game that was just a Word doc, black text on a white background. And the game had probably 30 plus tokens. And right in the setup, it says, now take the Doom token. I'm like, what is the Doom token?
The one that says Doom? Wait, they don't say Doom.
I'm like, maybe it's the skull, but there's another skull here.
Is it the skull with crossbones or the crossed out skull?
Right, exactly.
Which one?
So that's, and also what I do to try to protect the video before I even post it is that I render it out to Dropbox, and then I'll send that link to the publisher to look at. And I said, let me know. And, I'm going to get it ready for you to start prepping it, watch it as soon as you can. And sometimes it's just like, oh, I spelled that wrong, or, you put the wrong card in this place, so I'll go fix the B-roll or whatever. And I'm all about trying to get it as perfect as possible. So I will take videos down before they ever air, because usually I'll post it as unlisted so the folks can embed it and use the link and share it however they want before it airs. I'm always like, oh, I hope I got it right. I hope they like it. And then they always come back, oh, this was amazing. I'm like, oh, was it though?
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of the positive buzz and the hype, right?
Yeah.
But there is another side of it. So do you think board game previewers have a responsibility, or necessarily reviewers maybe have a responsibility to call out subpar games or games that are more problematic practices?
Yeah, there's definitely things within games that I think are worth calling out. Like I had a game that was a roll and move, but it used a 4-sided dice, right? So I ended up not even filming that game and telling them, here's the things you should change. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, there are certain things that should get called out because, but that doesn't make the game overall bad, right? And again, like I found with my dad, there are games for everyone. Just because you think it's bad doesn't mean everyone else thinks it's bad. You know,
Monopoly sucks, Mark, and then sells trillions of copies.
Yes, exactly. I don't like Monopoly either, but you know, you can't deny the popularity of that game.
Yeah,
right?
what it's done to our industry is just, I mean, next to
and there's all kinds of cool, like I do like Monopoly Gamer, the one with Mario Kart. Basically, it's Mario Kart on the board. I love that game. So
So has there been a game that you previewed that you knew right away would be a breakout success? And then what tipped you off about that game?
Yeah, so probably the big one would be Deep Rock Galactic. And
I figured you were going to say this, actually.
because that's like my most watched video. I've got like 35,000 views. And the crossover between video game and board game, they 100% nailed it. So I knew of the game, the video game. I had never played it. So Corey Thompson and I got on one day. So this was part of the prep for the game, right? We spent all day playing the video game and we just teamed up online and played all day. It was so much fun. So then I went and started reading the rules and I'm like, oh, well, this is just like in the game, rock and stone, you know, all that kind of stuff. So they did, that is still probably my favorite, like video game to board game translation, whatever you want to call it. It is just so well done. And of course it's got the big, awesome miniatures and so forth. So, and there's so many different missions and different ways to play expansions now that it really is just kind of this own microcosm universe within the board game. And the board game is definitely something unique apart from the video game, which they did a good job with that as well. So, and I really love working with those folks. And it was definitely, I still think it might be one of my all-time favorite videos.
Yeah. I really want to play that game. It just looks so cool. And I want you to teach me one of these times when I go over to your place.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So with the growing number of influencers that we have now going into 2025, do you think the quality of previews have actually been diluted based on quantity?
Yeah.
And what sets true professionals apart from casual?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody, I love that folks are able to do stuff, you know, and I don't want to downplay anybody, but there's definitely, you know, I see things in other videos that, you know, I did that like 5 years ago and this is the new way of doing things, or this is better way of doing it. But that doesn't mean it's better for them. It's definitely better for me. And there's definitely a quality issue. You can tell based on camera, the type of camera, the lighting, you know, maybe they have real flat lighting. And I don't like that. I like dramatic lighting with shadows and depth. I like to show the depth, right? So those kinds of things set videos apart for me. And just folks who have like real studios set up and real lighting and microphones, and not just you hear that hollow mic where they're talking to their phone or something, right?
In the distance.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff. So you can definitely tell quality issues there, and not everybody has the means and money to do like what I do. Mm-hmm. And I've accumulated my equipment since my photography days. It's not just now doing previews. So I have a lot of lighting and different cameras and things from then. But for previews, I've discovered that my favorite way of filming is with camcorders, because they're so quick to focus and adjust based on me moving my hand in and out with something. And there are fixed focus length cameras that do the same thing, but the versatility of the camcorder is so huge for me.
I love shooting on old school film cameras.
Nice.
I love the grain in film.
Yeah.
There's something weird about that.
That's so funny, because I feel like with the age of digital, right, at some point we're going to see art houses say, we've applied the grain filter. This is an extra $5 to see the film this way, because it has that old film, old-timey film. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So looking forward now, so we're thinking about the future. Looking ahead, how do you see board game media and previewing evolving over the next few years? And what role do you hope to play in that future?
Yeah, I think the big thing, at least that I'm seeing across the board, is that people want that more and more and more of the short form content. So I'm trying to push more of that. Not everybody wants that. I have what we call pocket previews, which I hope more people will do. Like Ivy Studio is all about it, which I love. They're always innovating. They're always doing the next thing. So they allow me to do these short form versions of the videos. And I'm probably going to do that with Zoomies as well, because I think lends itself so well. And I hope to incorporate Alita, my dog, into that video as well. I'd love to get her sitting next to me at the table. That would be so cool.
If Alita doesn't have a cape and you have like rush tracks in the background as Alita's running, I'm not going to watch it. You have to do that.
So awesome. Well, I have scarves for her, so I have her scarf.
There you go. Superhero Alita.
Yeah, superhero Alita. So I want to incorporate her, and I'm working on a script to make it more punchy. And I love this actually, because having a script is really nice, and I have to run through it 3 or 4 times to have it feel natural, right? But so filming me talking is easier, but then the editing becomes more difficult, because now you're making it more dynamic, more punchy. You're having stuff, jump in and out. And I think that's kind of where we're going in general, is that this long form type preview is going to start seeing people just want the short form, 2, or I'm thinking 3 to 5 minutes is kind of a sweet spot. And then even versions that are a minute, which I do with the spotlights, that people could drop into any social media they want to.
I think it's fascinating because YouTube actually, I was reading up on it the other day, and YouTube right now, it says something about they want long videos now for certain watch time. And I'm like, but the way the industry is going, TikTok's a thing, short-term video seems to be where we're going. It's interesting.
Yep. And with all those jump cuts, things that we used to avoid, right, are now a thing people love. And also, I think that I'm really interested in doing more and more TikTok stuff, and I hope to convert a lot of my videos moving forward to that. But it will always bug me that TikTok brought back the pan and scan, because I grew up on square TVs where everything was pan and scan, and I couldn't wait for widescreen where you just got to see the film or video as intended. And now TikTok has forced us to be pan and scan again. So that I am not going to lie, that bugs me like crazy. And the fact that Premiere actually has it built in that it will center up on the content as you change the format and size of your video. That's pretty cool that it can detect and move around for you. You'll still have to tweak things a bit, but I like it that it'll help me and aid me in doing that, because pan and scan.
Pan and scan, you heard it here. So we're gonna take this full circle, and our last question here is, for those out there that want to start doing board game previews, can you give us 3 pieces of key advice to start?
First and foremost, play games. Play a bunch of games with all kinds of different mechanics, so you are familiar with what is going to be hitting you. So you're going to get games that are going to have from like 5 other games. Those 5 games are all in one game now. Things like that. So you need to be familiar with all the mechanics, all the things that are happening. Just play as many games as possible. Second, above all, invest in a good microphone, because even if your video quality isn't up to par, the audio really brings the video down. So if it's clear, really clear audio, even a video that's, maybe not 10, maybe it's 720p, or something like that, will still be passable. But as long as that audio is good, that's going to be such a home run for you, because so many folks fail at the good audio, and there's so many great mics and things you could do now that there's really no reason to not have good audio anymore. And of course there's budgets in mind and all that, but in general, that would be my number one stop. And then lastly, invest in a good camera, and just lighting in general around that. Don't just rely on a room light. At least get a ring light that you can focus down on what you're shooting currently, something to give a little depth, a little shadow. And having shadows is not a bad thing. Do not stray away from that. Shadows are good. It shows the depth of the board and what all is going on and the 3D of the pieces. So yeah, I think those are the main things for sure.
Yeah, lighting is definitely crucial. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see my set right here, what I have. Granted, this is not supposed to be open. Normally I close this down, and I just realized that. So I made a mistake. Don't follow me. But if I close this, the shadows are going to be perfect because I have a key light right here. Well, I have the ring light, I guess, right here as my main.
Same here. I've got a ring
light on the sides, and then I have my lighting in this room is actually pretty bad because I don't have consistent lighting. I have the 2 natural daylights, but then I have warm light in the back, and then warm light, and then blue, and then some sort of aesthetic pink light down there.
I would say that as far as the lighting temperature goes, I would much rather see something with warm light than cool, the blue light.
Yeah, the sterile blue light that we all love.
Don't. And if you have to, like, and the other thing, I mean, there's probably more than 3 things. So, learn about editing and cutting and making cuts and doing the B-roll and all that. Spend some real time. Don't just throw it together on your phone or something. Actually spend some time learning all the tools around the editing software that you're going to be using.
It's going to help you in the long term. I know Affinity is not free, right? Or is it free?
No, I don't know if it is now.
I think it's like a one-time paid purchase.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And unlike Adobe, where I'm spending way too much money every month.
Yep. But the beauty part about Adobe, though, is that you get all the tools. It's not just one tool. And I love the fact that Adobe, like, if I modify something in Photoshop, Premiere just updates immediately.
It links immediately, so as long as you have it in the right folder and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that so much.
So that I feel like this is a whole beyond segment in the future. We could have a whole episode talking about video production, and who knows, maybe we could have that as an extra bonus episode.
Yeah, definitely.
But now that is going to be the conclusion of our main topic. But we are going to move on to one thing that Mark loves about our podcast. We're going to talk about something we're very excited about, either inside or outside the board game industry. It's time for the Beyond.
I love it.
I will go first because NFL is back, baby.
Oh, look at you.
Love sports. And for those of you who know me, know how much I love sports and board games. Those are kind of like my 2 favorite things. I'm a nerd on both sides. So I like to say I'm the best of both worlds because it's like I love board games and I love being nerd on sports.
What's your favorite sports board game then?
Oh, my favorite sports board game? Well, I don't have any. So I know.
Have you not played like baseball highlights?
I haven't. That's one I think I'd like though.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you would like it because it's awesome.
Tom and I have a lot of the same flavor for like things we like, and so I know he likes that one a lot.
Yeah.
So I think I need to play it.
You do need to play it. It's really good, and that's a Mike Fitzgerald game. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, the NFL is back. I'm the Packers fan. I'm from Iowa, so Wisconsin is pretty close. And don't ask me why I became a Packers fan. I have no clue. All I know is I like the color yellow and I like the color green.
Nice.
And Packers are green and yellow, so that's kind of why that's my team. No other reason. I don't even like cheese that much. It's just kind of like, it is what it is. But we're currently starting 0-1. Yeah, I know the season's not starting out strong, but we always have the Lions to look forward to. They won in overtime. They're 1-0 now. And there's a different energy with the Lions this season. I'm really hoping for a big season for them. Nice. So that is my Beyond.
Do you do like the Sunday ticket where you can get all the games and all that?
I can't afford that. Otherwise, I would.
It's like really expensive, right? Compared to like other streaming services.
Yeah, I already have too many streaming as it is. So I can't add another one.
I get that for sure.
So, yeah.
So mine is going to be board game related this time. So last weekend, like I said, went to BCon, which is fantastic. But the highlight of that weekend was playing Ryan Lockett's new game, Above and Below, the Haunted version.
The Haunted?
Yeah, so that game is fantastic. And we, all 4 of us, learned it on the fly as we played, and it just was the best experience the whole weekend, gaming experience the whole weekend. So I love Ryan to death. He's such a good guy, and he does amazing games, amazing artwork. So I'm just thrilled that I get to do the preview for that in October. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. And if you like Above and Below, this is definitely kind of the next step, or, I think it's better than the original Above and Below. So yeah,
we've got to get Ryan on here.
Oh yeah, I'll ask him.
It'd be so great because there's so many questions I have with him being an illustrator, designer, artist, musician, like publisher, all that stuff in one. It's like how to be that person who does it.
Yeah, definitely. And he's just so amazing, and just on top of it, the nicest guy, right? So
that is going to conclude our episode today. Thank you, Mark, so much for your insights. That was awesome to hear about previews. And of course, thank you, other Mark, for the reflection question today. Answer that below. Laura, thank you for the timestamps. And of course, to all of you high rollers out there listening, we appreciate your support. Exciting episodes here in the future. But for now, until next time, may your games be legendary.
And your rolls be epic.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.